All right, we are live here this evening. My name is Michelle Williams. For those of you all who do not know me, I am the president of the Houston Education Association. We are an affiliate of the Texas Teachers Association and an affiliate of the National Education Association. And we're broadcasting live from my home here in Texas. And I'm going to give people some time to hop on in. We got a couple of people joining us right now. Tonight's conversation is a conversation with one of the community leaders from the Hiram Clark area. And before I introduce her, what I want to do is remind you, if you do not, your teacher watching this live stream, if you do not have representation, you can become a member of the Houston Education Association at mytsta.org. Also, if you are an administrator, our local does not represent administrators, but in the current climate that you're in, if you're planning on being an administrator in HISD, you can become a member of NEA and get representation through this reputable organization. So, without further ado, I am going to 1 second bring up our guest, Sean Rushing. Yay! So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, and your community that you represent.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sean Rushing, and I represent the Hiram Clark community because I live here. I live here, play here, and pray here. So I am definitely here to represent my community and just share some of the things that we have experienced under old and new administration of Houston Independent School District. Also, to just let you know, way before the new superintendent, I began to put my hand and kind of follow the pulse of what was happening in my community as far as schools were concerned. And we were able to raise, me and others in my community were able to address a lot of issues and concerns and bring attention to some things that we felt like should improve, should be aligned when looking at other communities and deciding just to get in our cars and ride to other communities to their meetings to see what their discussions were. And we were able to see that, based on zip codes, the communication really does change in how they approach certain communities. So I'm here. I think I'm a person who is resilient. Um, I don't work for the district. I don't work for anybody attached to the district. So I'm able to have a real view of what I feel like is happening in our community or what should be happening in our community. And I like to say, we're too quiet over here. So we just had a meeting to talk about that, and we're a little too quiet. But it's because we're paying attention and we're ready to talk now. We're ready.
All right. Yay!
I love that.
So thank you for coming on the show, and being a part of this movement. I am of the belief this is not a moment but a movement, and we're going to jump right into the questions. If you have any questions for Miss Rushing, you can pop them in the comment section, and at the end of our conversation, I'll bring some up on the screen. So the first question I have for you tonight is: can you tell us where Hiram Clark is located? For those who may not know where the Hiram Clark community is located in Houston, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I knew where that part was, but I didn't know what it was called. So can you tell us where you all are located?
So Hiram Clark is located in District 9 under HISD and in District K under the City of Houston. Our city councilman is the mayor pro tem, Martha Castex Tatum. Our elected board member is Myrna Guidry. We used to be considered the South District, and it did include Westbury. Now we're still considered the South District, but Westbury is not included with us, and it goes towards the south, towards 288, to Sterling, to Worthing, and Yates. So think about being in between NRG and Pearland, and you're in Hiram Clark.
All right, so now we know where you all are. I know you were very active in the Hiram Clark area before the TA takeover of HISD. What were your initial thoughts about the takeover when it first happened?
So when I heard all the conversation about the takeover and what was happening, I was very involved in following the conversations because I once went to a well-known charter school board meeting, and believe it or not, they were talking about 1882 or 1842, whichever one you want to say, but they were talking about taking over some of HISD schools for 2 years, and they were talking about how it would not count against them if they came in and took over these schools. I think this was October 2018 or 2017 when we went to this board meeting. So I connected the two when I started getting more in the know of what was going on in HISD, and I then began to hear HISD talking about the takeover, and I was like, I heard that a year ago with Kip. So Kip is, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say the name of the charter, but this well-known charter was preparing themselves to be able to take over some of HISD schools. I mean, they were really preparing themselves to take over the school. They were explaining how financially it would benefit them, how they can make a difference in the lives of children, and they were talking about how they need to align some of their practices. So I just began to watch a little bit closer, and then I heard all this conversation coming out, but I knew that these were not new laws. So I felt like we were being very reactive to where we were beginning to stand as far as laws were concerned and what could take place. And of course, I began to hear things about, our state representatives voting on these laws years ago, and you started to hear things like it was one school's fault, and then on top of all of that, we know what happened with our board members and with our people of the district. So I was just concerned because I was just like, my community is so quiet. How will we be impacted by these changes? What will they do with our schools? Because we were getting new schools built. Our children were not up to par as far as state accountability were concerned, and we were in caught up in a downward spiral of not being a school, not having some schools that were not meeting state accountability ratings as well. So I was trying to say, will we be part of that? Even though we were not there when the current superintendent or interim superintendent decided that she would uh, charter some schools, we end up being a part of that group, even though we were not 5 years in with, being not meeting state accountability. We ended up being in that group. So I remember going to a meeting at Worthing High School, and because I understood what charters meant, my question is, if this organization is going to be the charter, what does the charter say? Meaning, what is this charter promising the state that they can do for our schools? And at that particular meeting, I was asked to sit down because I'm a little familiar that charters have a place, but charters also have a commitment to the state to do something that the present uh, educational venue is not doing. So, that kind of caught them off guard that I asked that question. And so I just continued to just pay attention, raise awareness where I could, involve my community more, let them know, changes are happening. We need to pay attention. We need to utilize our decentralization autonomy to be able to make some decisions of what we want for our community. But of course, we need to do better.
Okay, so next question. Most people are well aware that HISD had room for improvement as it pertains to underserved communities or Black or Brown communities. And that's what I've been telling people when I speak. I have been teaching for a very long time. Nobody is saying that HISD was a perfect, there is not a perfect district. There it's not. All of the districts have room for improvement as it pertains to Black and Latino students. So, what were some of the concerns of your community, the Hiram Clark community, under that elected board? What were you seeing that was not being taken care of as it pertains to the your community?
Well, I'm a big supporter of shared decision making committees under the district, right? So,
Hmm.
what I saw under the current elected board members is that we were not utilizing our autonomy to make sure we were looking for growth in our schools, sharing best practices across the district. Meaning, if there's a school that is making a difference in the lives of children utilizing this concept, why aren't we adopting these concepts? Why aren't we talking as a district looking for best practices that are benefiting our children and moving them forward? So when I went to other communities, even under the elected board, when I went to other communities, I could clearly see that there were things happening in those communities that could definitely benefit our community, but we weren't utilizing those services. We weren't utilizing those practices. We weren't, it's like across lines, we weren't doing things that were making a difference for children. And so, you look at it now, we have someone that says, I'm going to cookie cut everything. Everything will look the same. And that's pretty hard because we're a big district. And, so that's what I saw. I saw it's working over here, but we're not doing the whole formula over here. It's working over there, but we're not doing the whole formula over here. So therefore, we're not having success throughout the district when we have best practices that are present.
So, and there we know, because I can remember, because I've been going to the board meetings, seem like forever, and I can remember Jolanda Jones saying that there were inequities within the district, and I can remember distinctly when she made the comment and said that the schools, the Black schools, had to do warm body counts, and the schools in the West would get paid on their rosters. So schools in HISD didn't get money. The Black and Hispanic schools didn't get money until the kids showed up. But all the schools in the West had to do was turn in their rosters. And that was the first time I really realized what was taking place in HISD. So that's the past, connecting HISD's history to today. We see that, okay, now the table has been turned. We have no elected board. We don't have, as a matter of fact, we have a board of managers who do not even represent the community, and we have an appointed superintendent who's not a citizen of Texas and will not become a citizen. I'm pretty sure he doesn't even have a Texas driver's license. So, based on what you have seen, have any of those concerns that you had prior to the takeover been addressed since TA has taken control of HISD based on the feedback that you have gotten from your community members? Because I've met some of the people from Higher Clock. I attended one of you all's events. What are they saying, and has there been any changes?
So we worked so hard before the takeover to at least get people to be involved, not be so quiet, right? And we had to start all over again because the quietness is worse, because the level of commitment they are given as far as communication is concerned is zero to none. Or they're talking to a community of people who were never interested before, so they definitely not interested now. And things are happening where the families are just checking out of our schools. They're just literally taking their children out, saying that they're homeschooling their children, or they're taking their children other places. And the autonomy to do that, I think, is more open now than it was before, because there used to be a time when charter schools would open their charters up to take waiting lists, and then they would do their raffle or their lottery to get children, and then that was it. It was closed for the rest of the year. I started seeing things on social media saying, mid-year, if you want to enroll your child in this charter school, just click here. And so, because of the level of service I think some of our families are receiving, and uh, let me share this. It could be more involvement, but when you have learned to do things that are not that are counterproductive to going forward, you have to nurture a community of people and educate and empower them to be more involved. It just doesn't happen overnight. And so now we have this new leadership here, giving these new mandates. Um, Little to no community involvement. SDMCs are not operating. Your NESA or NES, you're changing principals. One of the high schools in my area has changed principals 8 times since 2018. And
Wow.
so the change is so rapid, and today is one person, tomorrow is another person, that it really doesn't set way for people to say, I'm ready to jump in and be involved. And so we as a community said, we're saying, if we can't uh, get the schools to talk to us, then we'll form our own level of empowerment through our communities, for the sake of what's going on with our children. Because if they're not willing to do it with us, then we'll do it, and we'll be able to show them that we're willing and able to make a difference in the lives of our children. Even if we haven't before, we're here now, and we're not quiet anymore.
And that's good. So one of your initiatives that you all have been working on, what's the project name? The Hiram
Uh,
Clark.
we're working with the Hiram Clark, the South Houston Concerned Citizens Coalition, the Hiram Clark Community Resilience Project. So
Mm-hmm.
there are two entities that are are working to do things. And then we definitely have alumni, classes of alumni that are doing things to benefit the children of the Madison feeder pattern as well. So the more we talk, the more active we become, the more closer we will become. And we are stronger together. We realize that, but we might be still working on our own little playing fields, but it's only to benefit the children of Madison High School and the other children that lead up into Madison High School. So we're committed. And it's not just about, let me be clear, it's not just about HISD.
Right.
It's about holding all schools in our community accountable for what they're doing with our children, right? So we don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive, because we also have a new elementary school coming up in our community, and it is one of the charter schools. But let me share some facts with you. These are facts. Some of our elementary schools in our community don't even have 400 children. They don't even have 400 children in their pre-K 4 through fifth grade. We have a charter school coming up in our community that will open up pre-K 4 through second grade, and they've already secured 486 students, and they have a waiting list. Again, some of our elementaries don't even have 400 children pre-K 4 through fifth grade. That's a fact. That's something
Wow.
to be concerned about. That's something to be looking at. And when we met with our 11th graders at our Hiram Clark Resilience Project meeting that you came to, Michelle, those 11th graders told us we need to have strong elementaries.
Yep.
The 11th graders could remember that the elementaries lacked what they needed. But again, this charter school, when meeting with them, let it be known that our children aren't reading. And so when we look at what's going on now and what I've heard about what's going on in the NES schools, there's no opportunity to catch up. there's this curriculum just goes on and it moves forward. And I don't know if our families know how to share with the school, my child, it didn't get teaks this or objective this. I don't know if we're doing objectives or teaks, but I'm just, when a child doesn't gain a mastery or the ability to work through that objective or that teaks, then at the end of the year we'll know, right? We'll
Right.
know that our children didn't get what they deserve. And so all the time I like to say that every day that I get up and every day that I choose to be involved, because it is a choice, because I don't have any children in the district now. My children have successfully graduated and went on to be a positive adults. I say every day my reason for being present is to make sure all children receive a free, appropriate public education. And so, HISD has gone through so many changes, and we're at a change now where it's almost like we don't have a voice at all. It's like Austin has had a conversation with some people and said, move ahead no matter what. And so it is very important to me that even if the school doesn't invite us in, that we as a community decide that we're going to pay attention to what's going on, and we're going to ask the questions, and we're not going to be quiet, and we're going to work as hard as we can to make them understand that when you're gone, because you're temporary, we'll still be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. But and the goal for our collaboration with you all and the collaboration with LULAC is to use our platform because NEA has a very long reach to empower you all and use our platform to raise your voices as a community. One of the things, like you said, you all have the communities of color have been too silent. They have. And what the misconception I've always seen in education is that parents, black and Latino parents don't care about their kids. And that's not true. But I tell people all the time, you can't ask parents. Well, you can ask them who were traumatized by the same system to show up at a system that is traumatizing their own children. So you have, and we're talking about the public school system. We're talking about that. And I tell teachers all the time, we come from a voice of privilege because we know how the system works. Even when my son was in school, we were able to put our children, we knew the teachers, we knew this. Well, parents don't have that perspective. And one of the questions that has always been raised is, well, now the people are concerned. Yes, I said, because here's what, I'm very transparent. HISD did not have a good track record. When I came back in 2009, HISD was like a barren land. People don't know. I started in HISD as a first year teacher. HISD trained all those teachers, and most of them that have been in these surrounding school districts were trained in HISD. But HISD has had a track record of not being so nice to its teachers. And it's a lot of teachers that can tell you that. But here's what I do know. I know that there's a better day because my favorite poet, Frederick Douglass, said, where there's no struggle, there's no progress. So we are going to have a lot of progress because it's going to take the power of the people, communities like Hiram Clark, communities like at the East End, to start the conversation. And this what this is about. It's about starting the conversation in communities of color, using this platform to get your voices heard and amplify the voices of parents and the students of the parents who are not down at Hattie Mae. And that's what I had been trying to tell the board of managers. They made the comment that the parents would be more apt to come to a school. No, ma'am, because we can't get them there. We can't. So this is where it begins. So here's my next question. Based on the community feedback, how has the TA takeover of HISD affected specifically the Hiram Clark community? Because I know at the meeting you all had, the last one I attended, I did meet with some of the Madison students, and they raised some very, very good concerns about their education. So go ahead and share with us what that feedback is.
As long as I've been working with HIZ and working with families to resolve some of the issues that they have, is who do you call and who will respond? That is the biggest issue that I think that is impacting not just our community but all communities. We hear about all these services, we're invited to all these open houses, but I've been there and asked the question, and guess what? They're not able to answer the questions about the services that they're providing. They're like when you go to things like the Sunrise Centers in other communities, say for okay, this is a real thing. So I went to the Sunrise Community meeting at Sterling. So they have a Sunrise Center connected to them or connected to their community. So when he began to describe the things that were happening at their Sunrise Center, I said, "Is that happening at every Sunrise Center?" And he was like, "Yes." And I said, "Sir, let me share something with you. Don't say that. Don't say that." I said, "Because I can tell you for sure what you're doing is great, but it's not happening at every Sunrise Center throughout the city. I can tell you it's not happening at the Sunrise in my community." So even though Sunrises may have a purpose, I don't think they're definitely not ready to take up where wraparound specialists were meeting the needs of families, but they're here, right? And I think that there's always a question of what do the families need? What do they families need? You had to fill out paperwork when you were working with the wraparound specialist of a high school. So there is logs and logs of the needs of what families need when they take their children to HISD school. Now, has that information been utilized? Has that data been utilized so that Sunrise Centers can be successful? I don't believe so because the services that the Sunrise Centers offer are definitely different than what is being offered on the school campuses. And I don't ever think they reach a perfect level of communication. So we have this team of people, um, you know, addressing the needs of the children of the community, the families of the community. But are they really talking? I'm not sure. I just think that they know it worked somewhere else, but they're not sure what's working in all communities. And I wish we did a better job of communicating as a community with a liaison from the district, but I don't see that yet because it looks like to me that they're so uh, driven to make NES a winning platform that they're almost missing the conversation and the needs of the community.
And that is a good point, because even I can see the difference now that, some of the affluent community members are saying that they are not voting for a bond. I see we don't see that propaganda of NES, because that's all it was at the beginning of, because social media was killing us with it. So here's my last question. What changes would you like to see take place to move the schools in the Hiram Clark community in the right direction?
So we never got our conversation with the superintendent in the Hiram Clark community. And we're pretty big, right? So the superintendent never came to our community to just find out and allow us to ask some questions and get direction. So when we say NES is coming to more of our schools, even though we're NES aligned, we still don't totally understand what that means. I also would like to see that based on the way that I hear that the curriculum is moving with the children, when I hear too many parents say, my children are going to school, they're doing this, they're doing that, but I still don't know if they're learning. I really don't know. And so I think that if we could just have a better understanding of are the children really moving forward as much as the superintendent would like to believe they are. And we would like to know what is true and what is slander. I mean, not slander, but what is not true, right? Are we really having the success that we need to have with NES? Because when the children of one of the high schools in my community decided to push back and let their voices be heard, we lost days of instruction. Days of instruction. And since this NES platform is about the whole district, then that means that there were days where those children missed instructions. So if they missed instructions, they missed some teaks and some objectives that could have been that were to be taught, but they were never taught. And I would like to see a real dashboard of saying how many certified teachers do we have on campus, how many uncertified teachers we have on campus, how many teachers do we have that are seeking a certification, how many learning coaches, how many teachers apprentice, because to me that makes a difference. That if we're going to change things, then let's be transparent about the change. Let's work together, hear our voices as much as you want us to hear your voice. The district nowadays is spending a lot of money on communicating we're doing this well. And I've done charter before, and charters are their own best cheerleaders. And if you're not on board with cheerleading the way they go, then you're not a true component of the organization that they're a part of. And so I think it's not learned behavior, it's best practices. That if you're only here temporarily, then don't forget to include the people who will be here forever. Definitely once you're gone.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One of anybody I talk to who's a parent, that has been the battle cries that there's no community in the plan. And at the end of the day, when the board of managers took took over, I laughed because they was like, "We're the community," and now here we are over 100 days later, and the community is still being silenced, even from a teacher standpoint, because people think that the community is just, the parents, and it's not. It's all stakeholders. The community represents the stakeholders are the business community. It's the parents and the teachers. That is the triangle that creates stakeholders in HISD. And let's be clear, a triangle, I teach mathematics. If one side is missing, it's no longer a triangle and it cannot stand on its own. So that's historically what personally I've seen as an educator in HISD for all these years, where our triangle is never complete. And I think it's now time for communities like Hiram Clark, and I'm waiting on the North Forest community to come on board, and the West Side, the East End, to all come together and delve a powerful blow and let them know that, like the little girl said at the board meeting, she said, "Hey, sir, you picked on the wrong city. We are Houston. We are Team HISD, and we represent all parts of the Houston community." And as we close out this wonderful discussion, I want to invite you all to an event that is sponsored by LULAC. One of my strategic goals for the Houston Education Association is to build coalition with the community. It is not my voice, the beat of the drum, my drum, that you need to hear. It is the community. So we are here supporting communities, Black, Brown, West Side, all of them, to let their true voices be heard. I don't care the propaganda about unions. I'm a teacher at the end of the day. I know what it's like to educate a child who is not on grade level. I had one of those. That's how I became an advocate for children who, in their art meetings, you got people talking over the parents' heads. That's how I became an advocate. So this event is May the 11th. It is a workshop. We have two state reps. Penny Shaw Morales, Christina Morales will be there. It is sponsored by LULAC. Next week, we will have Diane Osman Guzman. She will be on our platform. I will be talking with her about the workshop. You do not want to miss this. You don't have to be from the East End. If you are part of the Latino community and you're listening, please come out and support because your voice is one of the voices, along with the African American community, that is being silenced. And silence in politics mean you agree, just like when you don't vote. So I will be promoting this event. And if you don't know how to get in contact with Diane about the event, we also need volunteers. If you're a teacher and you're bilingual, we need you to show up. So thank you so much, Sean, for being on here. And if you have any questions, pop them in the comment section. I'll pop on when I can. Look, I'm busy and try to answer those questions for you. Thank you for being a part of this most important conversation. And I'll see you all next week on my live stream with Diane Osman Guzman. Thank you.
Thank you.